Hi, I'm John Hargrave of Media Shower. Welcome to our Better Communication Training Series. This is our most important training video, and it's all about the new way of writing. Here's what you're going to learn. First of all, how to write for the web. It's very different from what you were taught in school. You're going to learn how people find your content, and you're going to learn pro tips, specific techniques that you can use to get the most readers for your work and unlock your communication superpowers. First of all, here's how people find your work on the web: through search. The vast majority of people will find your work through a search. They don't know you, they don't know your business, they don't know your blog or your website. All they know is they typed something into Google to solve some problem or ask some question. Your page came up, they clicked through. Now, when they get to that article, your job is to hook them into staying on that article. If they read it all the way to the bottom, as we discussed in our action-packed content video, they will click a call to action or a CTA in order to download some bonus piece of content, and that's a success. That is the happy path. Now, here's how we do that. Your job is to hook the reader. So, for example, if somebody types in article writing services and they find a top ranked page, such as our page on article writing services, you got to show them at a glance that you got the goods. You got to show them, for example, with a summary table or chart that shows the answer to that question they just asked. On this page, they can clearly see that you've done your homework. You've got all the answers they're looking for in one easy-to-read table, complete with star ratings and links and all of the data that goes alongside that. If you show them that right away, they're more likely to continue, and you've got about 10 to 15 seconds, the research shows, to hook the reader. We want them to continue to read. If they don't, they click the back button, and that is bad. We don't want that. In an earlier video, we talked about the action rate and how we focus on that action rate as the percentage of people who click the call to action at the bottom of the page. But now let's add two additional metrics: the time on page, which is the average time that users spend on the page, how long they spend reading or engaging with this content, and the bounce rate, which is the percentage of users who read one page, then hit the back button. From Google's perspective, that's bad because Google tried to give them a page that they thought was good, and the person bounced right back to come back to Google's list. So bounce rate is bad. We want that bounce rate as low as possible. Time on page is good. We want that as high as possible. And action rate, as we've covered in earlier videos, is awesome. We want that as high as possible as well. So to do this, we're going to share with you now all of the techniques we've learned in 25 years of doing this in a few different modules. First of all, do your homework, attention-grabbing introduction, clarify and simplify, make your content easy to scan, create big, beautiful photos, and favor keywords. So let's take each one of these. Starting with doing your homework. Now, this part is a little bit like you learned in school. You had a teacher probably who gave you like an assignment for a research paper. And if your professor, your teacher was any good, he or she probably said, go find some authority research sources like studies or government agencies, authority publications, or find expert quotes or industry statistics, surveys, or polls. And take 2 or 3 of those and include them within your article. And that's what we expect from Media Shower content creators, is 2 to 3 quality data sources per article. And you need to link directly to the source. So you don't link to an article summarizing a study, you link to the study itself. Then you take all of that research, that raw material, and you synthesize. So this is where the craft of writing really comes into play. You're taking all of that stuff that you've learned and you're making it into a great article that's interesting and readable. And just 2 principles here. One is clarity and one is simplicity. We'll have much more to say about these in just a second. And finally, Webify. We call this the eye candy. Again, people don't read on the web. They scan, they skim, they swipe. So our content has to be scannable. We've got to help them easily pick out the relevant bits of information in a way that they can easily get it as they're going through fast. Research, synthesize, and Webify. That's the three-step process. Next, as you're writing this content, you want an attention-grabbing introduction. The easiest way of doing this is in a nutshell. This is like the too long didn't read version of your article. It's like an abstract in a technical paper. In a nutshell. And what you're doing is just summarizing the entire thing in a couple sentences. And websites that rely on great content to drive revenue are really good at doing this. So just check it out. What is student loan refinancing? Really well, in a nutshell, student loan refinancing is ... And here it is, super easy to understand. Counterintuitively, when you give it away up front, people are more likely to read through the whole article because you've answered their question and now they're like, well, what other questions is this brilliant writer, this brilliant content creator going to answer for me? Another trick is to use a summary table, as we just discussed. If you can summarize the options in a table or chart, but you really have to do the research, do the homework, and pull together the data in order to make these tables. By the way, one of the best ways of cementing learning for yourself is to create a table where you compare and contrast different things. It's a really great technique. You can also use bulleted lists for your attention-grabbing introduction. If you want to summarize the information in a step-by-step list, let's say we want to say list of baking ingredients, and here's what Google returns. I was hoping there would be a bulleted list, baking cake. Let's see if that works. There we go. So here's 9 essential ingredients every baker needs. And Google actually pulls these and puts it into this top box, which is called the featured snippet box, in flagrant violation of all known copyright laws. That's right, Google goes and scrapes your content and displays it without your permission. But you know what? They deliver you a lot of traffic in return. So until our laws are changed to stop Google from doing this, that actually works really well to drive traffic. The bulleted list, it's readable not just by humans, but also by search engines. A definition, if the subject is an unfamiliar one. This is another great example here where the article is how to read a Schumer box. Hey, what's a Schumer box? Here's the answer. It's a cheat sheet about a credit card. So they answer that right away, starting with a definition. Finally, you can start with a story. The human brain is hardwired for stories. You can't go wrong with a story, especially about complicated technical topics. If you're trying to bring to life something like a customer management system, then you want to talk about a customer who called her local business and was not able to get through. And once she finally got through, no one knew who she was because the business didn't have a customer management system. So if you can bring these topics to life with a story, either real or hypothetical, such as suppose that one of your customers calls and this happens, a story can really bring these things to life. Start with a story. Next, clarify and simplify. If you haven't read this great book, The Elements of Style, or you haven't read it since high school, I highly recommend you get it and give it another read. That first great opening sentence, omit needless words. I love that sentence. It's just so tight, so concise. Omit needless words. We say if it's fluff, it's not enough. This is the number one problem we see with writers. You've got to go back through and prune your words. You've got to be concise. Make it tight. You can also use Analogies. Another great book I highly recommend is Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. It's about how we communicate ideas that stick onto people's brains like a Velcro ball. And that's one of their analogies. And I still remember it because it's so weird. A Velcro ball on your brain. So come up with analogies that are unusual or interesting or funny or relatable to something else that people can easily understand. Write short sentences. Bookmark this app, the Hemingway app. It can really help you, again, keep your sentences clear and avoid cramming multiple thoughts into one sentence. Write short paragraphs. A wall of words should be cut in thirds. There's nothing more intimidating to web readers than seeing a giant wall of text. Please, on the web, paragraphs should be no longer than 3 sentences as a rule. You want lots of short, bite-sized chunks of copy. And finally, write to last. We're writing for the next 10 years, so don't mention current events. Please try to write for the future. Next, make it easy to scan. So first of all, the easiest way is to create good subheads. And when you're writing those subheads, you're trying to think about all the different things that people might be thinking about when they're reading this article. It's easy if you've got a list like this. Your subheads are just your items that you're going to be talking about. But if you've got something like debt settlement, you're trying to write subheads like how debt settlement works, debt settlement risks, all of the kind of related things that people may have in their heads, and make them clear and direct, like somebody would type them into a search engine. Don't make me think. Don't use humor or wordplay or make it just complicated. Just be simple and direct. You can also include quotes or quick facts to break up large blocks of text, kind of like a magazine. And in fact, a magazine is a pretty good analogy for what we're doing here. If you think about how a magazine is laid out, it's kind of what we're doing. You got a quote, you've got some kind of abstract or sort of summary up at the top. You got big, beautiful photos. So think about it like a magazine, but we're doing it as a web page. You want to boldface important concepts. So again, make it easy for people to pick out the most important things as you're going through the article. Next, to include data visualization, so charts or graphs or anything like that are helpful. If you have any data that we can turn into a chart, you can always make a note and our production team can create those for you. And finally, including big, beautiful photos. And every article should contain at least 2 or 3 big, beautiful photos. A featured image, that's the big image at the top, as well as additional photos throughout, breaking up blocks of text. Now on photos, very important to align with the great values. See our earlier video on values, because what we want to do is make your content feel good. When people come to that, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And if we have a great, positive, inspirational photo, people will automatically be more inclined to like what you're writing. It's like a 20% lift in your article just by creating a great photo. If it's a sad photo or people look depressed, it's not going to work and people are not going to want to read. So a few specific tips on choosing the right kind of image. First of all, choose people, not machines. This is hard, especially if you're writing about something like data lakes, a very technical topic. How do you possibly communicate data lakes without showing like a bunch of ones and zeros or a dark background of a computer screen or a bundle of wires? So you got to be creative, especially with complex topics. If you're going to use illustrations, please choose professional illustrations and not clip art. If it looks like something that would be in like a grade school newsletter, don't use it. Choose authentic looking photos. This is hard because we're using stock photos, but we don't want them to look like stock photos. We want them to look natural and normal. We don't want them to look overly posed, like the business person smiling and holding up a cup of coffee, or everybody in a conference room giving the thumbs up. We want to try to make photos that look more natural, more like people communicate today. And all images must be fully licensed. We cannot compromise on this. You cannot grab images from the web. You have to use one of our approved stock photo sources. Ask your editor for details. Avoid bad images. So as we discussed in an earlier training video, you want to avoid photos that are aligned with the great evils such as fear, worry, doubt, disease, ignorance, poverty, or criminal behavior. This is hard sometimes. If you're writing about hackers, for example, how do you create an article and find an image that doesn't have hackers in it? So you've got to be creative with the way that you think about your images, but we're looking for you to choose as much as possible positive, inspirational images that align with the great virtues that we talked about in our values training video. Virtues like open-mindedness, showing diversity, a love of learning, lifelong learners, leadership. It doesn't have to be of a smiling person. It can be more abstract if it's showing something in an interesting or creative way. Social intelligence, if you're going to use illustrations, this style is very popular today, of this kind of very flat pastel type illustration. Make sure it's not too busy. Make sure it looks professional. Or things like gratitude or appreciation. We can get kind of funny. They can use images that get people's attention and that are a little unusual. Now, as always, the client's needs will reign supreme. So if the client says, we don't want this kind of photo, you should listen to the client. We're trying to give you some principles that you can use to choose great photos for our clients. Next is the issue of keywords. So every article, every piece of content we create has a keyword or a search term that is associated with it. And our goal is to write for humans, not for search engines. And again, what we want to do is decrease the bounce rate, and we want to increase the time on site. We want to keep people reading and hopefully keep people out of clicking the back button. And to do that, we got to answer what they're saying and what they're looking for when they type that into a search engine. So we want to think about their search intent. What is it that they're trying to find out? If somebody is typing best customer data platform, for example, who are they? They're probably a marketer or some kind of person in a corporate IT department who's looking for a platform to pull together all of their customer data. So they know what they need. They know what a customer data platform is. They're looking for all the different options out there. And what else are they looking for? Probably which ones are best, which ones get the best customer reviews, the pricing, what is the contract terms, what features do they have, what do they integrate with, all of these things. So you're trying to kind of get yourself into the skin of that searcher. You're trying to get into the mind of that person typing that search. And you're trying to think about all the things, the mental map of ideas that they will have when they're typing that in. That's what you want to answer. And finally, you're writing the best article for that topic. So again, you're favoring the keyword. You're using it in a natural way. You're writing well, not writing for search engines, writing for humans. Don't force the keyword. So this is our content checklist, and we hope you'll print this out and hang it next to your work area. First of all, did you create a strong opening that grabbed your reader, that hooked them within the first 10 seconds? Do you have a great featured image? That featured image is going to go with your article everywhere. If somebody shares it on LinkedIn or on Facebook, it's going to grab that featured image. That featured image is now the most important part of your article, along with the title. That's all people are going to see when this is shared out. Do you have lots of subheads and quotes and bulleted lists? Do you have plenty of eye candy to make it easy to skim and a pleasure to scan? Have you used short sentences and short paragraphs? Have you answered all the big questions from someone searching this term in Google? Do you have something to say? Do you have a key takeaway that people are going to remember? Have you done your homework? Have you included 2 to 3 reputable sources of data and linked directly to those sources? Have you made sure that you match this with the tone and the style of the client? Have you double-checked all the spelling, the punctuation, the grammar? And again, the Hemingway app is really good for just doing a double check on all this before you submit it to an editor. Have you included a trackable call to action at the bottom of the article? And finally, have you reread the instructions? Go through and do it once more to make sure you hit all the points that were asked in the original assignment. That is our new way of writing. Thanks for watching, and we hope you'll join us for our next video.